Hello and welcome to our office hours presentation for today. This is Paul Hoyt. Our office hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring session that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and all of these recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these office hours presentations is that we know that being a successful business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team to be successful, and we want you to get to know us, because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we care about you. We want you to be successful in all areas of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and experience and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these office hours presentations beneficial, please pass the word. You can attend for free. All you have to do is sign up on our website, and we do our best to bring valuable content and inspiration to every show and everybody that we come into contact with. In our office hours presentations, we do an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. Then I offer some closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session. And then we go into open Q&A and coaching. So as you listen to the content today, if you have any questions, or any topics that you would like to discuss, please write them down. Please enter them into the chat box that's in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will call on you, or we will address your question or your discussion topic first time whenever we get to the end of the presentation. We also invite you to join us on social media in the Awaken CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where on both of those I publish a business success principle of the day on both Facebook and LinkedIn 4 days a week. And I do an energy of the day posting on Facebook every single day. I think today was number 711 days in a row. I get up, and as part of my morning discipline practice is to find something inspirational or insightful to say about a word that I have chosen, not quite at random, but a word that I think carries positive energy. Today's 711, today's word was credibility. And the encouragement was for all of us to do things that increase our credibility every single day. Publish, speak, offer some social proof. Do the things that credible people do in order to enhance our credibility. I also want to invite you to an Awaken CEO conversation. As many of you know, I do an interactive webinar once a month today on the Awaken CEO system and platform, a conversation this Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but a week from Wednesday, November the 11th at 6 p.m. Pacific. We're going to do another Awaken conversation with a special guest. So watch your emails and for sign-up information to attend one of those Awaken conversations. Our office hours presentations are primarily about business, about 90% business and 10% inspiration. Our Awaken conversations are about 90% inspiration and 10% focused on business. Today's topic for our office hours presentation is on expansion. We're going to offer best practices in staffing. And we always try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of business that I defined in my book, The Foundation Factor, published in 2004. And today it's all about leadership. One of the primary responsibilities of a leader is to build the team and then align that team with the vision and the plans of the company so that we can all be pulling in the same direction and the team can work together to achieve the goals and objectives of the company. And one of the biggest things about leadership is defining who you're going to hire and how you're going to hire them and executing the plan to do that well, onboarding them well, etc. We also try to relate the subject matter of the day to the Awaken CEO Systems message of the importance of mindset, methods, and momentum. The Awaken CEO System is our flagship system here at the Hoyt Management Group, where we bring business savvy to conscious businesses, and we bring consciousness to savvy businesses. For those of you who know me, you'll know that I got one foot in each one of those worlds. In the world the physical level of creation, I call it. I'm all about science and engineering and plan and performance and results and actions and behaviors and doing things to move forth your intentions on the physical plane. But I've also got a foot squarely in the inspirational world. So I'm focused on beliefs and mindset and attitudes and the importance that those things bring to our success, here in this human experience. And this subject matter of the day, which is about hiring and expanding your staff, covers all three of these levels of performance. It's about a mindset and having great attitudes and beliefs about the way which we hire people for our team. It's about methods and processes that we use during that process, and establishing great momentum. Momentum in this particular case is probably company culture. We want to hire people that are agreeing with our company culture and communicate the company culture with them so we can maintain the momentum of our company culture. Our agenda for today's conversation is several. We're going to have 6 different topics here. We'll talk about why expand your team in the first place, the options you have for expansion, hiring to sell more. We're going to give an example about what happens whenever you hire in order to sell more things, more products and services. We're going to have another scenario about hiring to deliver more, and then we're going to offer our 6-step hiring success formula and then sum it all up with the bottom line. So first of all, let's talk about why expand your team. Why expand your team? Why not just go as a solopreneur or go with the small team that you have? Well, there are 2 great reasons for expanding your team. The first one is bandwidth. When you have more work to do than you can comfortably do with the current team, that you've pushed the current team a little bit to work more than 40 hours a week, if that's possible. You've pushed them a little bit into overtime. You've pushed them to a point to where now that there is so much work to do that the current team can no longer comfortably do it, and you're at risk in some way of disempowering, of abusing, of somehow mismanaging the current team through pushing on them to work more, or you just want a more comfortable working environment. So we hire people to take on the additional workload. The other great reason to hire people is because you don't have the talent or the expertise in the current team in order to get the job done. There is a specialist job. For example, you're putting up a new computer system and you need specialists in that computer hardware or software in order to help you implement the system on a project kind of basis. So that's a very good reason to go outside and get that talent and expertise. That's why we hire attorneys. That's why we hire business consultants. That's why we hire specialist professionals to come in and help with individual tasks that we know that we don't have quite the talent or expertise to do with our current team. And we have a lot of different expansion options when it comes to enhancing our team and growing our team. One of those options is through employees. Employees implies a payroll relationship with the employee and with your state government, where you might have benefits. You certainly have some tax obligations, but you have a lot of control over your employees, and unfortunately, the government has some control over you because there are a lot of regulations around employees. The primary reason or primary way that businesses expand is through employees. In most cases, businesses will have 80% or so of the work done through employee relationships and 20% done through contractors and outsourcing relationships and temporary project relationships. I do understand that there is a tendency for that to be moving somewhat. I talked to a fellow business consultant of mine a couple of weeks ago who really believed that the world was already at 70-30 and was headed towards 60-40. So that means fewer employees and more contractors, which is your second option. With contractors, we typically have very formal agreements that outline the work to be done. We don't pay taxes on the fees on the compensation that we pay contractors, but we have far less control. And there's always a debate on whether or not somebody who's been with the company for a long period of time working as a contractor really should have been an employee. If they're full-time, the debate rages. If they're part-time, part-time contractor, they may also be be held to be a part-time employee. And there are some very specific guidelines offered by the IRS and by your state governments on whether a person is a legitimate employee or whether they can continue to be a contractor. And it has a lot to do with control. It has a lot to do whether that person has a separate business whereby they are doing contracting work for multiple clients, but mostly it's about control, whether or not you dictate the actions that that person has or whether or not they have some flexibility in getting the job done. You may specify what needs to be done, but they get to specify the how the job gets done and the when the job gets done, in a lot of cases the where the job gets done, the tools that they use for the job. The more flexibility that you give them, the more freedom that they have in to choose how and when the work gets done, the more they are a contractor and the more you can avoid an unpleasant conversation with the IRS. However, if you're telling them everything to do, if you're telling them they need to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning and this is exactly the job they need to do and here's exactly how they need to do it and here's the tools they need to do it, then they're probably more legitimately an employee, either part-time or full-time, than they are a contractor. We won't get into too much more of that today, but I do have some guidelines for you that I can share if that's of interest to you at some point in time. Right in the middle of that, by the way, is attempt to hire, where you hire somebody temporarily as a contractor with the intention of, if things work out after 90 days or so, that person may become a full-time employee. And that's a pretty darn good relationship. Many big companies these days are having a temp to hire relationship. My wife, Sherry, currently works for a very large company here in the Bay Area, and she was hired on a temp to hire arrangement. She left a full-time job to take a temp to hire job with a very large company, taking the risk that it wouldn't work out, but believing in herself and her capability, and it did work out. And she's been with the company now, I guess, 3 or 4 years, and it's working out really, really well. So that might be something for you to consider whenever it comes time to expand your staff too. The last area I want to talk about is outsourcing. Typically, when we use the term outsourcing, we outsource an entire department or we outsource an entire function. We outsource an entire project to a third party with even less control that we have over our contractors. Again, there's no taxes, and you have to have very good agreements, and you have to really pay attention to those agreements and manage those agreements well. But typically with an outsourcing arrangement, it's taking an entire project, a function, or a department and outsourcing that to a third party. Not to get confused, by the way, with outsourcing an individual task. Sometimes we use the term outsourcing a task in the same sense that we would hire a contractor to perform a specific task. So for example, we could outsource administrative assistant to a virtual administrator. And when we outsource it that way, it's really not outsourcing a function as much or a department as much as the intention of outsourcing is whenever we talk about it is one of our 4 major options. So those are your 4 major options. It's you as a leader of your company, I think would be money ahead and time ahead to understand what those 4 options are and when and where to employ each one of those options. I want to now go into a couple of different scenarios about companies that have hired somebody to come onto their team and to really assist with the company. The first scenario I want to talk about is the hiring to sell more scenario. In this scenario, we're going to take a sample company that has revenues of $10,000 a month. Their expenses are ranging $6,000 a month for existing staff and overhead. Their profits or their take-home out of the business is $4,000 a month. And they see the opportunity to hire some administrative support people, some marketing people, some sales people to steadily increase revenues. So they decide to hire somebody at $2,500 a month in order to sell more stuff and then deliver the more stuff that's sold. What's important in this scenario is the business isn't in the door yet. They just see the opportunity to expand, so they want to hire somebody to increase their sales effectiveness. Here's what it looks like from a financial point of view. In the first couple of months before they hire somebody, they have $10,000 worth of revenue, $6,000 worth of expenses, and $4,000 worth of net income or profit to the company. In month 3, they hire somebody for $2,500, increasing their expenses and reducing their revenue and lowering their profits enormously. But gradually over a period of time, their revenues increase again, their profits increase again, to where in this particular scenario, in month 9 or 6 months after they've hired somebody, their profits return to the same place they were before they hired somebody. They made an investment in staffing. They made an investment in expanding their company. They increased their overhead by $2,500 a month. Their revenues fell $1,000 a month during the training period. And by the way, that's an important concept when it comes to staffing and increasing your staff. There is always an investment in that staff that is beyond the money that you're paying the staff. It will always decrease, in this particular scenario, will always decrease your effectiveness at least for a few days, if not for a few weeks or a few months, while you tend to the training and the onboarding and the integration of that new person onto your team. In this particular scenario, the revenues fell $1,000 during that first month of training period, and revenues grew steadily thereafter. Other expenses, by the way, also grow whenever you bring people onto staff. There's always some related expenses in addition to the compensation that you're paying them. This could be business cards. It could be, taking them out to lunch once a month. It could be, most anything that additional marketing collateral, office supplies of any kind. So you will have additional expenses other than just the compensation whenever you bring somebody onto the team. And their staffing investment took 6 months for them to return to previous profit levels and begin paying back the investment. Their total investment, as it turns out, over that period of time, turns out to be $10,000. Their recovery was 11 months after they hired the new person. And it's kind of like loaning somebody $10,000 and being paid back after a year. So in that particular case, they made an investment in expanding their business. And in year 2 and year 3 and year 4, we trust that the investment that they made in this new employee paid off for them, and they were able to steadily see increased revenues and increased profits over time. I want to contrast this scenario, which, by the way, is not a great scenario. In this particular case, it's like, if we invested $10,000, we were at some amount of risk that that person would leave the business or not pay off. And it took a long time to pay it back. I'm not a big fan of this scenario of hiring somebody and able to sell more. I'm a better fan of the next scenario I want to share with you, and that's hiring to deliver some more. In this particular scenario, you've got agreements with customers, then they're in place, the business is already there, and the revenues increase immediately with the delivery of additional products and services. And the expenses increase at 60% of revenue. And instead of hiring somebody to sell more, you're hiring somebody to deliver more, and you're able to almost immediately turn that investment in that additional staff member into increased revenues and profits. And here's what it looks like in this particular case. We were at $10,000 a month in the first 2 months. Then we immediately jumped to $12,500 a month. In other words, we're paying an additional $2,500 a month, but we're also immediately enjoying, in fact, in this case, we're paying less than $2,500 a month. We're paying $2,000 a month because, generally speaking, delivery people cost less than salespeople. And we're realizing an immediate increase in revenue and an immediate increase in profits that steadily grows over time. So in this case, the staffing and investment, in scenario 1, we invested $10,000 and over 6 months and recovered in 11 months. And in this particular scenario, we added $15,400 to the bottom line in the same 6 months. So there's a $25,000 difference in between hiring somebody with the anticipation of increased sales and hiring somebody to actually deliver business that's already on the books. So here's the bottom line. If at all possible, sell first and hire second. Sell first and hire second. Build up your backlog of available delivery of products that need to be delivered, of services that need to be delivered, and then hire somebody to assist you in the fulfillment of your existing backlog and your existing obligation to the customers that you already have. So next, let's talk about how do we do that? Whether we decide to hire somebody to increase our sales, or whether we decide to hire somebody to increase our delivery, how do we do that? And my offer to you is the 6-step success formula, which, by the way, I've seen be very successful in both the military in the United States and in corporate America. In corporate America, General Electric has some very, very sophisticated processes, of which this is a subset, and they have over a 90% success rate at hiring people and integrating them into the business. And they define that 90% success rate is the person is still on the team and productive 1 year after their hire date. 90% is phenomenal. The U.S. Air Force in 2006 did a study, and they only had a 7.1% washout rate from everybody that they brought into their system. In both cases, they had their jobs very well defined. They did a comprehensive interview process. They did tests and background checks to make sure that person was who they said they were. They did an onboarding and training exercise with them. They had probationary hiring, and they had ongoing management. We're going to take a look at each one of those steps one at a time to talk to you about these 6 steps, which form my best practices in onboarding people and bringing people onto your team. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about the different types of people that there are out there. There are different types of people. Some people are what we call level 1 people. Level 1 people see themselves as victims and prisoners. They blame all of their problems on the outside world. They're typically highly stressed, and they're tough to get along with, and they're generally undependable. I know that each one of us have had the opportunity to work with a level 1 person, and of course we don't want to work with that person because they are toxic, because their attitudes, well, all attitudes are contagious, and in this case, their shadow attitudes, their negative attitudes are contagious. They will bring down the morale and bring down the performance of any team that they find themselves to be a member on. On the other hand, there are people that are level 3 people. Level 3 people feel both empowered and responsible. They're eager to learn and contribute. They're helpful, dependable, optimistic, and happy. They're the people that we want to work with. We all want to work with level 3 people and not so much level 1 people. And what is a level 2 person, you might ask yourself? That's somebody in between, who some days they show up as a level 1 and some days they show up as a level 3, but they're highly influenced by the people that they work with. So if you have a company that's all level 3 people, all positive, enthusiastic, excited, motivated, energized, high-performing people, you can bring a level 2 into that environment and you can lift them up. You can lift their spirits to where 80 or 90% of the time they're focusing as a level 3, and it's only 10 or 20% of the time when life gets in the way or they're just having a bad day that they slip back down and function as a level 1 person does. So the most important thing about hiring somebody to work with your company, whether it be as an employee or a contractor or attempt to hire or even outsourcing an entire function, is to really pay attention to whether this person, this company, is going to function as a level 3 company or at a level 1 company. Really pay attention to the levels of people. Always hire the level 3s because they have very high emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, I did an office hours presentation on that 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I encourage you to pay attention to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is defined as being the ability a person has for self-awareness and self-management, and for social awareness and relationship management. Level 3s, by definition, have high emotional intelligence. They're easy to get along with. They're great people to work with, and that's who we want to hire. How we hire them is about this 6-step-by-step success formula that I'm going to go into right now. The step number 1 is on job descriptions. With the job descriptions, we define the daily responsibilities and the periodic responsibilities. We define the desired talents and experiences we want somebody to have who is in that position. We also define, inconsistent with our conversation on level 3s, the desired attitudes and perspectives, and we define the level of effort that's required and the level of commitments required. So for example, if this job requires somebody being at the store at 4:30 in the morning or at the site by 4:30 in the morning, you want to be sure that you define that whenever you talk to somebody so that you can get their agreement that they will honor that requirement. If we want somebody to make sure that they have a particular level of experience, we want to make sure to define that so that we'll make sure that we'll hire somebody into that specific job description. So first we want to define the job and the level of effort and all of the roles and responsibilities and any other acceptable behaviors that we have. So for example, acceptable behaviors have to do a lot with company culture. Hey, it's okay for you to wear, Aloha shirt on Friday, or not. Hey, it's okay to bring your dog to work, or not. Hey, it's okay to, we don't mind. In my early days, in the 1970s, when I was working for some companies, it was not okay for a man to have hair on his collar. It was not okay for a person to wear a short sleeve shirt. It was not okay for anybody to wear anything other than a suit. I remember working for EDS in the 1990s, and they were just starting to relax their dress code. In the early 90s and 80s and 70s, their dress codes was such that if you were a gentleman working for EDS, you were required to wear a white shirt and a tie and a suit every single day. And anytime you left your cubicle environment, even if you were going to go down the hall to grab a glass of water or to go to the restroom, you had to put on your suit coat. I mean, they were very, very controlling and restrictive in their cultural norms that they had in that particular environment. If those things are important to you, if somebody needs to show up with a clean uniform every single day, if somebody needs to show up 5 minutes before they clock in, if somebody needs to be able to work on Saturdays and Sundays or Black Fridays from time to time, you need to define that in the job description so that you can cover that requirement with anybody who's applying for that job. When they apply for that job, you want to make sure that you do interviews in a very intelligent and methodical way. You want to have first of all, you want to interview multiple candidates. That's always, always important. For those of you who've listened to Office Hours a lot, you know that I always talk about the 3 expert rule. I also would extend that to be the 3 candidate rule. Always important for you to have multiple candidates for your jobs, because it's only in that way that you can really see how any one person compares to other people that you might have on your candidacy list. I also encourage multiple interviews by different interviewers at different times of the day. Ideally, you would have a minimum of 3 or 4 interviews with a single candidate, each one of those with a different interviewer, and each one of those at a different time of day. Why? Because sometimes people show up really good in the morning, but not so much in the afternoon. Sometimes people show up well, in an office environment, but when you take them out to eat or they're in a social environment, they show up much, much differently. So if it's a very important position at your company, multiple interviews, different times of the day with multiple interviewers are exceptionally important. And outside interviewers can be very beneficial as well. One of the reasons we use recruiting companies, why we have staffing organizations help us find candidates, is because they have a third-party perspective. They are used to interviewing lots and lots of people, and they can go through, a list of 20 or 30 candidates and submit to us the top 3 candidates for our consideration, and that's really, really helpful in the hiring process. And I encourage you in those interviews to ask smart questions to determine experience, talent, and attitude. And of course, we're looking for those level 3s. The way we look for level 3s is we ask questions about somebody's that will define somebody's or allow them to somehow give away their emotional intelligence, because we definitely want to hire slow and fire fast. After we found ourselves to have a really good candidate, we want to do background checks. We want to do our reference checks and our background checks for anybody who's handling money or having a position of responsibility, and a lot more extensive background checks for executives, partners, and even critical contractors. I have seen some horror stories there. One company I know that was looking to hire a CFO, and I somehow caught wind that this CFO that they were going to hire, might have had a little problem with the law. And when I got to looking it up, they had been in federal prison for several years on embezzlement and bank fraud, but yet they were positioning themselves as being a CFO. Well, that was extremely dangerous hire, but in that particular case for that company, it was even worse because that company was raising capital, and having that kind of a bad actor on your executive team when you're raising capital can cause the Securities and Exchange Commission to completely invalidate your capital offering, and you have to give all the money back, and it would essentially bankrupt the business. So be sure to do your background checks, your credit checks, whatever level of checks that you can have. And I've got some excellent references for you for people who can assist with those background checks when you find yourself to have a candidate that you think that might be really good for your company. Again, reference checks are a minimum. You want to talk to 3 people that they've worked with before, hopefully recently and hopefully successfully. But if they're handling money or having a position of ominous responsibility at your company, you want to make sure you do criminal and litigation background checks. Step number 4 is the onboarding process itself. That first day that you have somebody on board is absolutely critical. You want to make sure you take them out to lunch. You want to make sure that you give them introductions all the way around. You want to make them feel good and special and appreciated. And you want to have a training plan in place from the very beginning, from that very first day. And you want to give them the opportunity to be successful and to contribute right away, and praise them for their efforts, for their attitudes, and for their results. To make them, it really does increase the loyalty of a company. Studies have shown that if you don't make a person feel very special and welcome on that first day, their sense of anxiety will increase and their retention will go down dramatically. So that first day is incredibly important, and that onboarding process in the first 90 days is very, very important. And during that first 90 days, by the way, that's a probationary period. And step number 5 in the best practices step-by-step hiring process is to have probationary hiring and lots of performance reviews. My recommendation is that you do a performance review at 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days if the 45-day performance review says that it's important, and at 90 days. And at the end of 90 days, you do a performance review every 90 days thereafter. Why? Because that's really a best practice in making sure the communication is going well, and to make sure that you're adjusting somebody's actions and their attitudes and their behaviors so that they are meeting the ideal. I heard last night on one of my favorite TV shows that you need to inspect what you expect. And if you're expecting a particular level of behavior, if you're expecting particular attitudes, you want to make sure that you inspect that behavior, those attitudes with performance reviews. In those performance reviews, I encourage you to create a scorecard and then share it with them on the interviews, where they rate themselves in each area that's important for you, and then you rate them before you have the meeting, and in the meeting you compare the ratings and you discuss the differences and you discuss any issues that are coming up. And as a bonus, I encourage you to make that a 2-way rating. So it's not only of here's the way that we see that you are doing in this particular job, but how do you think that we are doing? How are we doing in communicating with you, in giving you the training that you need to do a good job, and get them to contribute back to you. And by the way, when you ask people that question, how are we doing? How are we doing as employees? How are your coworkers doing? Did we make you feel welcome? Did we give you the training and education that you need in order to be successful in your job? You'll be able to tell really quickly whether that person's a level 1 person or whether that person's a level 3 person, whether that person is blaming other people for their lack of success and complaining and whining all the time, or whether that person is accepting responsibility for their performance and somebody that you can rely on in the future. And again, we do this because we want to hire slow and fire fast. If during that first 15-day interview you find that somebody just isn't showing up well, they haven't shown up on time, they're not paying attention to the dress code, they're blaming other people, they're really not feeling comfortable in their position, it may be time for you to make a decision right then and there to let them go. We want to hire slow and fire fast. Believe me, the rest of your team will will really appreciate it if you get rid of somebody that's just not going to fit in. And if you listen to my office hours presentation on the future of management that I did about 6 months or so ago, one of the best practices that we're seeing with really advanced new age forward thinking companies is that these performance reviews are not just done by the hiring manager, they're done by everybody on the team. The team gets together and decides whether or not that new person is a good person for the team, and the team makes the decision whether or not that new person stays or goes. It's not just on one person. It's just not on the hiring manager, as it is with many hierarchical boss-driven systems today. It's driven by the high-performance team, and it's the entire team's perspective that makes the difference, not any one person. So after you've done the probationary hiring, then comes the ongoing management. And the ongoing management, I'm a big believer in weekly one-on-one meetings and the focus of the manager on helping that person be successful in their job. And if you're new to management, that means shifting your attitude and shifting your mindset into achieving greatness through the efforts of others instead of achieving greatness through my own efforts. That's a huge, huge mindset shift in between anybody that has just been a solopreneur or has been the top dog at their business, where a lot of their self-image, a lot of the way they feel about themselves comes from their own efforts, to shifting about getting greatness or achieving results through the efforts of others. Achieving greatness through the efforts of the others is the ideal manager's mindset, and I encourage you to adopt that for yourself. So that is the 6-step, step-by-step success formula for best practices in hiring. First comes the job descriptions, where you define the job, then you interview, then you do background checks and a lot of different tests to make sure that person is the right person for the job, that you have it slotted into the correct position at your company. Then you do onboarding and training, is especially important during that first 90-day probationary process. And then you have ongoing best practices in management to make sure that their stay at your company is a great one. And that's the bottom here. So let's move forward to the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Many people are challenged with recruiting, hiring, and managing other people. It is not trivial to shift from being a solopreneur or an individual member of a team to being an effective manager of other people and to effectively recruit and hire other people. You can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money by applying these best practices in staffing, and realistically, you could in fact save your entire business. Because if you're running skinny at your business, and that especially if that hiring decision causes you to go cash flow negative for some period of time, and especially if it takes a long time to integrate people into your team because there's a long learning curve, if you screw up more than once or twice, it could cost you your entire business. Small businesses don't have the ability to make $100,000 mistakes. You know, they really are challenged when they make a $5,000 mistake or a $10,000 mistake. So by employing these best practices in hiring, you can actually save your business. And I strongly encourage you to get coaching and support to help you along in that process, unless you know for a fact that you're really, really good at hiring and recruiting and managing other people. That's been our agenda for today. We talked about why expand the team, your options in expanding the team. We talked about a couple of different scenarios. One of them is hiring to sell more, where you hire somebody in advance of the revenues being there, and in hiring to deliver more, where you hire somebody to actually fulfill on a backlog of orders that already exists. And we talked in detail about the 6-step hiring success formula and summed it all up with the bottom line. Here's your homework. Download the employee scorecard template and customize it for your company. When I post this recording to this office hours presentation, I'll also post the Awakened CEO employee scorecard that you can use to give to your employees and contractors and give them an opportunity to rate themselves, and that you can use to rate their performance so that you can have that valuable performance review conversation. Just look for that by signing into our Tribe portal. Find the office hours presentation, the page that has the presentation for this one, for best practice in staffing, and you'll find it there as a PDF that you can download. And I invite you to come up with interview questions that are really, really good, that inspire your discussions about the experience somebody has had, their behaviors and their successes, their attitudes and their attitudes towards teamwork, their talent and their ability to learn very quickly. And because we really want to see if they are a level 3, because we want to hire those level 3 people, those gung-ho, excited, energized, optimistic, positive people that will make our company be successful. Here in just a minute, we're going to go into questions and answers in coaching, where we invite you to make comments and ask questions about the subject matter of the day, to tell me what your biggest takeaways are and insights that you gained from the presentation, and tell me what you're going to focus on. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we offer a wide variety of support services. We teach you to do things like we're doing in the office hours presentation, through our education and training programs, through our coaching, advising, and mentoring programs. In many cases, we will help you do the job that needs to be done. We'll help you write business plans, create financial models, create strategic plans, create sales funnels, sales scripts, etc., and help you manage the growth of your company. And in some cases, we will do the job of an outside contractor or the job of an outsourced function and actually do things for you without supervision and without interaction. Our next office hours will be on November the 9th. That's next Monday. I haven't decided what the topic is yet. If you have a topic that you would like for me to cover, go to paulsurvey.com and fill out the questionnaire, or send me an email. And in between now and the time we talk again, do your homework. I also want to remind you, by the way, that a week from Wednesday, on Wednesday, November the 11th, we'll have another Awakened Conversation that we invite you to tune into. Just watch your emails for sign-up information. And with that, let's jump into Q&A and coaching. But first of all, about the best practices in hiring, and then about anything that you want to talk about. Stephanie, do we have any questions or topics of discussion for today?
We do. We do. First one, how do I get someone to sell when I am just starting and can't afford to hire anyone?
You know, I've seen people be in that situation before, where they say that, you know, I can't sell, or I don't want to sell. I need to hire somebody to sell. You know, and there is one good way to do that and one really bad way to do that. The good way to do that is to bring a partner into your company. You'll get them to be vested in your company at the partnership level. Make one of the top 2 or 3 people at your company be a professional salesperson. Give them an equity position, make them a partner in the company, and bring them in to do that. In an office hours presentation I did on the book Nail It, Then Scale It, the author of that book talks about, first of all, they were a venture capitalist for a number of years and said they would never invest in a company unless they had the 3 functions covered that needed to be covered. And he called those the hacker, the huckster, and the hopeful. The hacker is the engineer, the huckster is the salesperson, and the hopeful is the visionary and the leader. So you have to have engineering and delivery talent on your team, but you have to have sales talent on your team. The good way to get that talent on your team is by having a partner on board who accepts fully the responsibility of selling. The bad way is to try to outsource that, to try to hire a salesperson, because you as the CEO of your company, you as the leader of your company, cannot delegate, cannot abdicate the responsibility for sales to anyone except for your partner. And even then, you can't really abdicate it to your partner. You can delegate it, but you can never abdicate it as the CEO and the primary leader of your company. So if you find yourself in scenario 1 where you're just not any good at sales, or God forbid you don't want to sell, then you're in real trouble, because the CEO of a company has to sell. You need to get sales training. You need to get sales support. You need to transfer your own mindset to where you're excited about the opportunity to bring value to the clients and customers that you serve, and you can't wait to talk to that next person about the way that you can help them accomplish their goals, and you can have that extremely positive attitude towards selling. So that's the number one thing. Either get yourself a partner or get yourself to have a very positive attitude and get the training and support you need to shift your mindset and your skill set so that you are a professional salesperson and very, very happy and proud to be so. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, more questions. What do you got? If you are talking, I cannot hear you.
I know it's so fun when I talk to myself, though. Question 2. How do I get better at performance reviews?
I think the key to getting better at performance reviews is to use a methodology and a process. Yeah, I actually think there's two things. Number one, we talked about is the methods. We always talk about mindset, methods, and momentum. If you want to establish a higher momentum in the effectiveness of your performance reviews, then it depends upon your methods and it depends upon your mindset. So from a method point of view, we strongly encourage you to use the employee scorecard concept, to download that from the tribal portal and use that when it comes to performance reviews, so that you have a methodology, so that you have a process to follow. From the mindset point of view, for increasing your effectiveness in performance reviews, I find that the best thing that I can possibly do, and which I think will work for you too, is to put yourself in the highest vibration that you can. To put yourself in that place where you respect and you care about the people that you're talking to, and that respect and that acknowledgement of them and that encouragement, that admiration of them, that acceptance of them for who they are is unquestioned, that it's given. No matter how they are doing in their job, you know that you're going to love and respect that person and be compassionate towards that person. And when I find that I put myself in that mindset of being a compassionate, respectful person, that I can have those tough conversations with somebody else. I can say things like, I respect you, I love you, I care about you, but this right here, this isn't going so well. And they'll accept that a lot better, and I'll be much more effective as a manager and a leader because I have put myself in that mindset. I have disarmed them in a way from their defensiveness, from their hesitation, from their resistance, because they know that I love and I care about them. And I'm just saying what needs to be said because it's an honest, objective thing to be said. So those are the two things that you can do to increase your effectiveness in performance reviews. First, have a methodology. And I think even more important to that is to have a real winning mindset, a real level 3 mindset, even higher than a level 3 mindset. Put yourself in the highest vibration that you possibly can before you have those conversations with people. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question there, Stephanie.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just make everyone a contractor? Do I have to have employees? Good one.
That is a good one. So the answer is that you can make everyone a contractor for a while and get away with it for a while. I've seen some companies do that, to where they wanted to make everybody a contractor for the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, etc. But after a while, it starts to be a problem. After a while, the IRS will come in and decide that these people should have been employees all along, and you owe back taxes, workman's compensation, your contribution to Medicare and FICA, etc. For these people because they were really functioning as employees. A lot of time what happens is that somebody will get injured on the job and they want to collect workman's comp, or somebody gets laid off and they want to collect unemployment, only to find out that you have not been paying into workman's comp insurance because you haven't had a workman's comp insurance policy, and you haven't been paying into the state unemployment because you consider them to be a contractor, and they'll hold up their hand and say, wait, I worked full time for you for 6 months. I came to work every day. You told me what to do. I know you weren't hired me as an employee, but you should have been. And believe me, the state will agree with them. The state almost always rules in favor of the employee. So to me, if it looks like an employee and it acts like an employee, you're far better off getting a payroll system installed at your company and making them employees, and taking out the appropriate taxes and paying your fair share to the state government. So when the time comes for them to collect unemployment, or the unfortunate time comes for them to collect workman's comp, that you've in fact paid into that, and you won't be in trouble with the state governments, because they'll not only charge you back taxes and back this, but they'll also fine you and penalize you as well. So be cautious with that. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. And if it looks like an employee and you're treating them like an employee, then it's an employee, and you should have a payroll system in place, and you should be treating them as an employee. If you have any questions with that, then there are lots of HR firms out there. There's attorneys, and we're also, of course, happy to have a conversation with you about whether it's an employee or not as well. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Next question. I've got 12:55, so I know that we have time for one or two more questions. Stephanie, do we have any?
Who do I hire first?
Who do I hire first? Usually, the first person we hire is an administrative assistant. Usually, we hire somebody to help us be more efficient. We hire a virtual assistant, or if we've got an office environment, we hire somebody to come into our office environment, and help us out, to man a reception desk, to do something, because we ourselves as leaders and solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, we should value our time at a fairly high dollar amount. $50, $100, $150 an hour is the way that we value our time. And if we can offload a $10 task to a $10 employee, or a $15 task to a $15 employee, then by all means, that's what we should do, is to hire somebody to come in and do those things that will allow us to spend more time on really high value tasks like sales, like product development, like customer delivery, delivery of our products and services. Having those important conversations, those high value conversations, are easier if we can have somebody else help us schedule appointments, go take our cleaning to the dry cleaners, help us make travel arrangements, help us file things in the office, do those kinds of things. That's typically the first person somebody hires when it comes to offloading and making ourselves more efficient. There is another thing. If you find yourself to not have the expertise to do what it is that needs to be done, if you need somebody to help you write a business plan, do a strategic plan, design a sales funnel, manage a webinar, help you design a sales script, develop marketing collateral, then we hire people to do those specialized tasks that we cannot do even if we had the time to do them, because we don't have the talent or experience to do a competent, really high quality job at that. So those two things, we want to hire people to do the things that we don't know how to do, and then we want to hire people to do those low value tasks that free us up to do the high value tasks, such as sales and product development and managing our business in other ways. I think we got time for one more quick question, Stephanie, if we have one.
All right. I have a level 1 person working with me. How do I turn them into a level 3?
You can't. You can't turn a level 1 person into a level 3 person. It's just not going to happen. You may get them to act as a level 3 person from time to time by modeling that behavior, by showing up yourself as a level 3, that you may find out whether they're a level 1 person or they're a level 2 person just having a bad day. But if you find that somebody is consistently 50, 60, 70, 80% of their time showing up with an extremely bad attitude, that they're blaming other people, that nothing is going right in their environment, that they're just a toxic person, you're not going to be able to turn them into a level 3. It's just not going to happen. And my recommendation is that you love them, that you respect them, that you're compassionate towards them, but you get rid of them, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to everybody else that's working with you to have as positive environment as you possibly can. The only way that you can survive with level 1 people on your team is if you segregate them and isolate them. If they are working, in a place to where they do not engage with other people at your company, that they never engage with a client or a customer, that they don't engage with other people, that you're able to put them in a room and shut the door and just reap the fruits of their labors, then and only then can it work for a level 1 person to be a member of your team. But the second they start engaging with your customers or clients or other people on your team for more than just a minute or two at a time, it can be a toxic environment and can really bring down the performance of your entire team. So be very cautious about those level 1 people. Hire level 3 people. Be a level 3 person as often as you possibly can. You know, that's the whole entire message of our Awaken CEO system, is that we encourage everybody to play the awakening game, to be at your highest vibration, to be at your very best, to be as positive, enthusiastic, and highly performing as you can possibly be every second of every single day, so that you can raise the vibration, raise the spirit, raise the performance of everybody on your team. And I hope that that's something that we're able to do for you in these office hours presentations. And I hope that you have enjoyed today's office hours presentation on expanding and hiring, best practices in hiring. And so until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt. I just want to remind you of what a magnificent person that you are and can be when you are at your best or anywhere close to it. And I encourage you to be that person that you can be as often as possible. And until we meet again, let me just wish you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.